Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we're going to take what we just talked about with describing different data distributions, and we're going to extend it to comparing two data distributions. So we're still going to use our elements from SOC-V, but we're going to have to make sure we do some explicit comparisons between our two distributions. So again, I found some old AP exam questions, some practice exam questions. So let's just do a couple of these as examples, and then you should be ready to practice on your own. So this first example, it tells me two corporations, A and B, hire many graduates. In 2009, the starting salary was $36,000. And then they went back and they got the yearly salaries of 60 employees in 2014. And here they're summarized. So my top box plot is Corporation A, and I want to compare that with my bottom one, Corporation B. So comparing the distributions of data means I need to do SOC-V for both of them, and then I need to actually compare and say, this center was greater than this center or less than, or they were similar. I need to use specific comparison words. So first let's go through SOC-V, and then we can worry about comparing them. So I'll do Corporation A on this side, and we'll do Corporation B over here. So this shape. If I look at this box plot, it looks slightly skewed, but especially with those outliers, remember outliers make it very skewed. So I would say this is skewed right, right skewed. Whereas if I look at Corporation B, I don't have any outliers. My whiskers are pretty much the same. Now my median's slightly closer, I would say, to Q3 than to Q1, but it's not a very big difference. So I'm going to go with roughly symmetric here. If you were just convinced it was skewed, I would make sure you put slightly, slightly, slightly left skewed, just to qualify that. But honestly, if it's this slight, you should just say roughly symmetric. Okay, now O for outliers. Again, Corporation A clearly had those marked outliers, so it had 2 outliers. And if we have outliers, we want to say where they are. So I'm going to have to estimate at 71,000, and the second one, why don't we say 78,000. Whereas for Corporation B, I didn't have any, so no outliers. Now center. Because they're box plots, remember, we always talk about the median when we have a box plot because it's that line in the middle. So if I come down, they're very close to each other. Come down, say around 51, so approximately 51,000. And for Corporation B, honestly, they're so similar, I'm going to say the same thing, because remember, we're not being super exact, I can't tell from the scale, but around 51,000. And then finally, for variability, we could talk about the range, but whenever you have a box plot, it's more specific to talk about the IQR, and we want to talk about the more specific one. So my IQR, so for A, so Q3 I need to estimate. And remember, you can be a little different than me. Sometimes it's hard to eyeball that. Ooh, what do you think? I'll say 56, might just be 55. And then over here, what do we think that might be? 47. So to get my IQR, remember I have to subtract them, so I'm going to get my IQR is approximately 9,000. And then for Corporation B, this time that's more about, why don't we say 54. And then this side, these looked about the same, so I'll say 47 again. So that was approximately 7,000. Now that I've gone through SOC-V, I need to compare these. So skewed right and roughly symmetric, those are different. I'm just going to have to write out a big sentence. But anything with numbers, I want to say if it's greater than, less than, or similar to. So having 2 outliers here is greater than having no outliers. I don't need to say greater than. having a center around 51 and 51, so I'm going to say those are similar. I'm actually writing that comparison word, so I'll remember when I write out my sentence to say it. And then here, 9,000 for my IQR, that is greater than. So again, I'm going to write that so I can remember I need to make a comparison word there. Okay, now there's one thing I haven't mentioned yet that we mentioned in the other videos that's still true, which is the little plus I would write. So we still need context. So again, that doesn't need to be in every sentence. I like to put it in the first sentence just to get it out of the way and know I've done it. So I'm going to do that here. So the distributions of yearly salaries so I've got my context, that's taken care of. So now I can talk about shape. The distribution of yearly salaries for Corporation A is right skewed, while Corporation B is roughly symmetric. So I have to make sure I'm talking about both of them. If I leave one off, they're going to say, well, you're not comparing them, you're just talking about one of them. And they don't want to see a list. They don't want you to list everything about A and then go back and list everything about B. They want you to talk about them at the same time, comparing them to each other. So the distribution of yearly salaries for A is right skewed, while B is roughly symmetric. Now let's look at the outliers. So A has two high outliers at approximately $71,000 and $78,000, while B has no outliers. So once again, I've talked about both of them. Now here's where I'm going to start actually using my comparison words. So let's look at center. The median salary for A is similar to B at around $51,000. So similar to is considered a comparison word. So I've done that. All right, so finally I'm going to discuss the IQR, and here I do have a comparison of a greater than. So the IQR of salaries at A is greater than at B, and then because I want to have the numbers in there somewhere, I'll just put in parentheses. So approximately $9,000, which is greater than approximately $7,000. However you want to write it's fine, just as long as you address everything. You could have done it the other way and say, oh, at B it's less than A. That's fine too. Just make sure you're including the numbers when you make the comparisons and that you're using what we call explicit comparison words, which would be things like greater than, less than, or similar to. As I said earlier, we don't want to just list everything for A, list everything for B, and think we're done. We have to actively compare them to each other. All right, now I know that's a lot because it's really twice as much work because you're looking at two different graphs, but there's one more example for us to go through, and then you should be good to practice on your own.